I wanted to make this video because of the Finals and Helldivers 2. These are games I enjoy a lot, and I was sad to see a lot of talk about how the game is dead or dying because the player counts weren't as high as they were on release. I'm having fun with them, and I felt like the discourse implied that there wasn't any fun to be had for anyone in these games. They definitely have their problems. That shouldn't be ignored. But they were talking like those problems were impossible to fix, or that if they were fixed, it would be too late. The Finals is a free-to-play PvP first-person shooter, where you have to work with your team to steal money from around a moderately sized map to add to your score, and prevent opposing teams from doing the same, by destroying the entire map in the process. This game has Battlefield's destruction turned up to 11,000.
One contestant doesn't seem to like rigid structures.
Which is especially fitting since the development team, Embark Studios, is comprised of former Battlefield developers who worked on the series before the, incident. There's really nothing like it in gaming right now, and while this means that they have an entire subgenre to themselves with no competition, it also means they have their work cut out for them, since they're encountering problems that no other game has encountered before. There's also the addition of 3 different weight classes, each with their own sets of playstyles and gadgets to choose from, which means that weapon and ability balancing is something that nobody can agree on. For example, at lower levels where coordination is less common and teams often split up, the light class, with its hit-and-run playstyle and vast amount of mobility and escape gadgets, will have an easy time picking off players who have split up from their team. And the heavy class, who performs best with good teamwork and positioning, doesn't really work when you don't know the map layout or even what your team is doing. The opposite is true at higher levels, where the better aim and game sense of opponents mean that lights, with the lowest health pool in the game, are at an inherent disadvantage compared to mediums and heavies when they're caught off guard, and lights need to work extra hard just to perform at the same level. Helldivers 2, despite being a 4-player co-op game, also had a bit of a balancing problem. Players were leaving the game due to multiple weapon nerfs and inconsistent damage, making the game frustrating to play. Think this 500kg bomb will kill this Bile Titan? Well, this tiny pebble on the ground blocking the explosion damage completely will disagree. Calling a game dead implies that it won't be able to be alive again, that the problems they have aren't able to be solved, which is definitely not true. The Finals had a team deathmatch limited time mode that brought more accessibility while keeping the chaos of the destructible environments. Personally, I think it has a good chance of making it into the game as a permanent addition at some point. They definitely still have their hands full regarding balance, but honestly, the community can't really agree on what to do either. The Helldivers developers heard the criticism regarding the game and released a massive balance patch that buffed most of the guns in the game and reworked the health of some of the heavier enemies. The game was fun again, and the player count reflected that. Recently, the Illuminate update released, and there was another resurgence in player count. It's definitely gonna settle down again after a while, but again, it's not a bad thing. And it should not be thought of as one because losing players is normal. Before a game is released, it builds hype and potential players through advertising and word of mouth, until launch day, where people following the game come out to play it, along with the people who try it because it's new. So, it makes sense that the player counts of most games would peak on their day of release. Over time, players explore the game and what it has to offer until they eventually discover all of its content. Once that happens, most people would probably leave. However, the player base eventually stabilizes, usually to a fraction of the peak player base. PUBG lost 90% of its peak player base, Apex lost 88%, Palworld lost 90%, and despite that, they're still some of the most popular games on Steam with tens of thousands of players. So, the argument that this game is dying because it used to have this amount of players but now it only has this amount just doesn't work because the default state of the game is to be slowly losing players, at least until the next big content update. Games like Counter-Strike set an expectation that successful games consistently rack up hundreds of thousands of players with continuous growth for years and years, when in reality, they're the exception, not the rule. Especially if they aren't from an already established franchise or company. But for the most part, novelty is appealing. So when it wears off, people start leaving. This is completely normal. New things have that shine to them just because they're new. It's a liberating experience when there's no right way to play the game, when everyone's equally stupid and there's no meta, because no one's established their preferences yet. Eventually, the novelty wears off. But it was only a catalyst to get players to experience the gameplay loop. When a game provides a unique experience that no other game has replicated, it will have a dedicated player base that will keep coming back to it, regardless of whether it's trending or not. Dying Light 1, Payday 2, TF2, games that haven't received major content updates in a very long time are still played by thousands of people because the foundation that these games are built on is just that strong. I think that this is the most important part of the game, and what will decide if a game will die or not. There's this new game that comes out with 100 hours of content. Maybe it has a battle pass, or 10 different currencies you can earn. Either way, there's something to grind for. So you spend those 100 hours checking off all the waypoints on the map, one by one, upgrading your gear so that the funny number can increase by 1. And then, while nothing in particular is happening, you suddenly ask yourself, what reason do I have to play this game over other games in my library? Is there a reason for this game to even exist? Whether or not I choose to continue playing a game depends on the answers to these questions. I like the Finals, because I like how it rewards playing strategically in a way that no other shooter has really replicated yet. Just delivering a box can become a clutch moment.
Nice.
Oh my goodness!
And even during moments of downtime, there's still so much going on that you have to think about, where just making a call based on what's going on around the map can be so rewarding when the enemy plays right into your hand. As an example, the main game mode Cash Out can be hard to understand for new players who are only used to 1 or 2 objectives instead of like 5. Basically, you have to get cash from vaults scattered around the map and deliver them to one of usually 2 cash out deposits. Then, defend the cash out for 60 seconds to prevent the cash from being stolen by the enemy teams. There's a lot more to think about, such as which cash out to go to based on the positions of enemies, which fights to take, and so much more that isn't explicitly stated by the game. Even in Quick Cash, a simplified version of cash out, there can be a lot more strategy than just shoot at bad guy. For example, something I don't see a lot of people do when I solo queue is prioritize killing the winning team when they have the cash out, instead of opting to fight the other losing team when they have nothing to gain. And that's not even mentioning all the different gadgets you can play around, because even without them, the core of the game is what allows the creativity from the player. If you strip a game down to its bare minimum, removing all of the additional content, and people are still able to find the fun in just playing the game, then the game, or at least its core concept, will never die out. Another game I've been playing a lot recently is Delta Force.
What's he doing? Easy!
Okay, we lost it. Delta Force, at its core, is a Battlefield clone. It copied Operations, Conquest, for some reason the hero shooter part from 2042 that everyone hated.
I got your back, your front, the whole meat sack.
And I played Delta Force because I like Battlefield. But Battlefield hasn't released a good game in 9 years. So honestly, I understand sometimes when people call a game or a franchise dead. Overwatch 2 still has tens of thousands of players despite all the tomfoolery Blizzard is pulling, because at its core, under all the sewage waste, there's still a fun game around there somewhere. But it feels so wrong to say that this isn't a dead game, even though it really isn't. For me, this comes down to my expectations, or more specifically, the potential that I felt it had. Overwatch, at least at one point, was very good. The foundation is already there. It had the opportunity to become bigger and greater than it is now, not just in terms of player base, but also in terms of content and support. But that opportunity has been ruined by poor decisions and predatory monetization. So when Marvel Rivals released a few months ago, it was just going to be labeled as another Overwatch killer, right? Well, not exactly. Why? Well, it's a Marvel game, obviously. You can't just make an argument that the gameplay is heavily derivative of Overwatch and how Iron Man is just Pharah and Star-Lord is just Tracer and Black Widow literally has Widow in her name. But looking at them, you don't see them as a copy of something else. You see Iron Man, you see John Guardians, you see... Wait, hang on. You see Black Widow. The audience already has pre-existing ideas and attachments to these characters, and that, along with the fact that the character design of Marvel Rivals is just really well done, serves as the flashiness to get players interested in the game. But more importantly, it's just fun. I think this Steam review sums up people's thoughts on the game. It's normal for developers to make mistakes, especially with live service games where a continuous flow of content is expected, but it's also normal for people to react to those mistakes. If a game is unique enough, it's going to retain players despite its problems, but if you let the problems build up for long enough, the amount of solutions will be enough for its own game, and when that happens, opportunity arises. It's really easy to have no faith for the future of a video game, especially when the company developing it doesn't either. Developers ignoring player concerns and making strange decisions is a really common story, and if the rushed, unfinished product doesn't meet their sales expectations, for reasons unknown to them, they just shrug their shoulders and leave a skeleton crew to stitch the shattered remains back together. So it's easy to assume that improvements will never happen. When Helldivers 2 went through that rough balancing phase, I was one of the people who quit. The game was more frustrating to me than fun. It felt like half of my gameplay was just being ragdolled. So, I put the game down, spent my free time playing something else, and waited for a few months for the fixes to roll out. But I never once thought that the game was dead because I personally stopped having fun with it. I watched a lot of videos about how this or that game is dying, and a lot of them boiled down to, I quit this game because I experienced these problems with it. Because I experienced these problems, the game isn't fun. What they forget to add is this. I do not mean to discredit their experiences. They have the right to play or stop playing a game based on what they feel about it, just as I have the right to feel differently. The problem is that when somebody reaches a conclusion about something based on some evidence, they tend to assume that other people, when giving the same experience, will encounter the same evidence and reach the same conclusion. Even if their logic is sound, which, let's be real, even the best of us can miss things, they tend to miss the fact that different people can take different perspectives from the same experience. That even if the dice they use is the same, it's not always going to roll the same number.
No great loss. It wasn't that good anyway.
I want to go back to this video by Ronin, because it presents a really well thought out argument that I think people should try to emulate more. It talks about the balancing problems I mentioned earlier in the finals, such as how players at different skill levels view different classes within the game as overpowered or underpowered. What I like about this video is, firstly, it doesn't fall into the false dichotomy of either balance it towards casual players or balance it towards competitive players that's present in so many PvP games right now, but instead breaks down the problem of why this group of players find this item annoying and why that group of players find that annoying.
A truly fun gaming experience is when there is clear communication of abilities and available counterplay for both parties involved, and players are rarely limited in what they are able to do.
And secondly, the solutions presented in this video play off of the strengths that the game has, rather than trying to solve them individually in a vacuum.
The finals is heavily based on the philosophy of balance by counterplay. So take a look at your loadout and identify all its potential weaknesses. If there's a counter to your loadout, that's actually good. That's a balancing decision. The issue is when a certain playstyle doesn't have a counter, and that is when action usually needs to be taken. For the Embark developers, I truly think that if you focus on things such as readability of gadgets and abilities, and double down on the counterplay elements of the game, you'll find a lot of success.
When a game is balanced based on pick rates and win rates alone, the understanding of the human aspect of the game is missing. Balance isn't just about making all options in the game equally viable, it's about making people have fun playing with or against them. My point is, there's just too many things to think about regarding the life of a video game that can't be seen from a glance. And when people are way too quick to dismiss games that still have a lot of life in them, I think it hurts the chances of success for video games with unique ideas that fit into gaps in genres that haven't been filled yet. I like variety in video games, and I think that enabling this variety will benefit us as a whole. Hey guys, this video is honestly way long overdue, so if you could like and subscribe, that would be a really big help. I really do want to make more videos, and the reception would honestly be a big support to me. So if you could do that, thanks.